Welcome back to Legal Matters, everyone. I'm your host, Alan Jones. With me now is Mark Brynteson, the managing attorney with the American law firm. As a reminder, this is a half-hour informational news call-in show devoted to a variety of legal topics. We have attorneys standing by now to take your call at the number on your screen, 815-394-1776. They'll be able to provide you with free information on your issue. The call is confidential, so pick up the phone now and call the American law firm throughout the next hour. Again, the phone number, 815-394-1776. Our opening statement, we're going to be discussing some interesting past cases that Mark from the American law firm has been involved in over the years. And then after a short break, we'll discuss bankruptcy and whether or not the American law firm is seeing more or less of this issue. But first, let me remind you of the multiple practice areas in which the American law firm concentrates. The American law firm can assist you in a variety of legal matters, such as divorce and family law, bankruptcy, personal injury claims, criminal traffic and DUI issues, wills, trust and probate matters, real estate and business transactions, and much more. So again, please feel free to call and discuss any of these practice areas with the attorney standing by. That number on your screen, 815-394-1776. Attorneys are standing by to take your call. Again, that call is confidential. And Mark, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
You're a man of great experience in the legal realm. We know that for a fact, so we know for sure you had some interesting cases that you've been a part of in many realms. So take us back a little bit. What was one of the more interesting ones that you've had?
Oh, memory lane. Probably it was one of the smaller cases, but it really is the essence of why an early investigation is important. An individual was riding a motorcycle, and a person came over into his lane. This was in Virginia when I was practicing in Virginia. Cut him off without the right-of-way, and there was construction going on. So you ever see those big cement barriers that are along the side of the road?
Yeah.
So there was no place for the guy in the motorcycle to go. He was
This
boom.
this doesn't sound like it's going to work out well.
Yeah. Well, in that case, he broke his leg. He had to have surgery, reconstruct the bone in the leg, and the insurance company wouldn't settle. And we couldn't figure out why didn't they want to settle. It was negligence. Well, we filed suit and we did the deposition. And the defendant said, well, he came over into my lane because all the witnesses were gone. We tried to find him, but we couldn't find him after the accident. But what they didn't know at the time, and we provided in discovery, is we had pictures of the construction at that time. And there was no way that how the defendant said that this accident happened could have happened. And it was because of the pictures that we took of the construction. Because what he said our client did, or my client did, couldn't have happened based on the photographs. And so it was funny, you were sitting in front of the jury cross-examining them, or the defendant, and all of a sudden you pull the pictures out. I don't know if his attorney didn't tell him or not. And you start putting the pictures, real-life pictures up in front of him and just melting, and you could hear the jurors laughing.
Oh.
And you know, you're sitting over there and you say, well, this isn't going too bad if they're laughing. But you could tell they were laughing because this guy was not telling the truth at all.
Sure.
And they got socked. But the moral of the story is, if we wouldn't have had those pictures and sent out our investigator to take pictures of the accident scene, he might have fibbed his way out of it. And it was just interesting because it'll tell you how far people will go to get out of responsibility for something. And if you don't do an investigation right away, which most of the time many jurors will think, well, if you retain an attorney right away, you're just a money seeker. No, you got to preserve the evidence because something like that could happen. So it's legitimate to do that.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point in taking pictures and preserving evidence, because in many cases, one of the things is take pictures of an accident. You know, when you're at an accident, regardless of the severity, take pictures of what's going on. So that just bears that out.
Well, I have a personal injury packet, a survival kit I call it, that we can send to people to carry around in their car to know what to do after an accident happens. So, but there was another, again, it gives you the idea. We had a case. It was a 16-year-old black girl, African American, that died of meningococcal meningitis, and it was a med-mal case, and she had went into the emergency room the night before, and she was a freshman. large freshman, 5'10", 165 pounds, so she was in an adult body. And in that particular case, she had as I recall, this was probably about 15 years ago, she had a 136 heart rate, but a low pressure, 84/58, very low blood pressure. And doc sent her out without repeating vitals. And in that case, the differential, that's what's all the different things that could be causing this, included, and he admitted meningitis. And the standard care is if you have a lethal consequence in the differential, even if it's a 2% chance, doctors are told in residency, you assume they have it till proven otherwise. Well, he sent her out. She died the next morning. The insurance company, through their experts, tried to say the parents messed up because they didn't bring her back when she was sick. And she was fine that morning. And the dad went out for 10 minutes to get her some medicine, came back, and she was crashed on the floor. So that'll tell you the extent that people will go to try to get out of it.
Wow.
So I can keep going. I have all kinds of stories with that. But that's why you need to get to an attorney early and talk to him about what to do. It's not wrong. It's a good thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We'll have more on that coming up in just a few minutes. Have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be discussing bankruptcies in America. You're watching Legal Matters with the American Law Firm. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm your host, Alan Jones. With me, attorney Mark Brynteson with the American Law Firm. You're watching Legal Matters, an informational and news call-in show devoted to a variety of legal topics. We have attorneys standing by now to take your call at the number on your screen, 815-394-1776. They will provide you with free information on your issue. The call is confidential, so pick up the phone now and call the American Law Firm throughout the next hour. Again, that phone number is 815-394-1776. So, Mark, we were talking about some cases in our last segment, and you mentioned a few cases, but we've talked about personal injury before. So, what is the largest personal injury verdict that you personally have been involved in?
The largest was a $5 million wrongful death award where a 5-year-old boy was run over by a car. And the facts were really, it was a lady with her friend out spying on her ex-husband, and they were looking over at his house and driving and talking, and the little 5-year-old boy was on a skateboard where he should have been on the sidewalk, and they drove right up on the sidewalk and ran over him. Mom was standing up in the house in the driveway, heard the clunk, turned around, and seen her little boy rolling under the car. I can still, it was riveting. The testimony was riveting. Said, I saw her rolling under the car, him rolling under the car like a ball. And it still brings tears to my eyes because this was her last child. She had 2 olders. This was her last. He was always around with her. Yeah. And it was striking. But if you could have been in this discovery phase and seen how the defendant tried to circle their way out of it, it was amazing. And it was funny because the passenger in the car who was trying to help her in the deposition was our best witness. Oh. The jury came back and said, that's why you won.
It's amazing they would even try to talk their way out of that as seemingly cut and dried as it was right there.
Plaintiffs are always the ones that are the bad people, but that's not the case.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting. Very interesting things you've seen and heard, no doubt. Yes. Well, let's talk about some bankruptcy. You've talked about before. A lot has been going on since 2008. We, of course, had the recession hit. Things have certainly changed. And among that, the number of bankruptcies that I'm sure you've seen over the years as well.
Well, I'll tell you what I've seen after this economic collapse, basically, from 2008 through 2014, is there's now, what I'm seeing is segments of the population that are affected that need debt relief help. It may not be bankruptcy, but it may very well be. What I've noticed, now I'm 57 years old. How old are you, Alan?
Older than that.
Okay, well that's good. I feel young.
You feel young.
But there's a segment when this collapse happened that are in our age group that lost their jobs, that were at a current level of living, maybe last kid in college. And what happened is they lost their job and they may have had their income reduced by 2/3. That's a big hit. When your house payment's here, when your child is in college, you're trying to get that last part of the retirement in the 401k, and now you don't have the job, you're trying to keep the house, then you couldn't sell the house, so you had no choice to keep the house, so you're tapping your 401k, and now you're 60 years old without retirement and a lot of debt. And I'm in that age group. I'm not in that predicament, but I'm in that age group, and I see a lot of people coming in that predicament. And there are ways to assist them without bankruptcy, but that may be the way to do it now. And I think there's others that are sitting out there in just that predicament, not only in that age group, because there's a lot of people that lost their jobs that took a much lower paying job. And I think there's a crest out there. I think there's a crest out there that's ready to fall of people that have hung on but can't get the job back up to where they were, have taken a bath on the house. And so bankruptcy or debt relief may be the option for them. It's, it's going to be on your record for 10 years, but to get it done with, and I know people that have declared bankruptcy and they've went down to under a 500 credit score, and 2 or 3 years later to up to 800. The bankruptcy's still there, but they can now start to function. So there are things that can be done for people that are in that circumstance, and I tell you, I see a lot of them still that are out there, and they're trying to hold on with all their might, but at some point in time, you can just tell the health. You can tell in their face what's happened to them. They need help, and bankruptcy may be the remedy.
That's a tough thing to admit to yourself, I'm sure. An individual say, the last thing I want to do is file bankruptcy, because that's a sense of failure. I mean, I could see where people would see that as failure, but that may be the first step toward redemption in some way.
Well, people, especially in the World War II generation and after that, they're pretty self-sufficient. They were able to live well during the 80s and the 90s, and then things crashed. And so they're fighting to not declare bankruptcy or do that. And there's a sense of pride, but there comes a point in time where you're exactly right, that you got to face what's really going on, and I see a lot of people doing that nowadays. More at our age group, but then it's still down at the 40s-somethings and the 30-somethings. It's there. And you're also seeing the class of people coming out of college now with massive debt, because the federal government will loan you as much as you want, and I don't care if you got a 400 credit score. They'll loan you whatever you want,
to you. Yeah.
And you can go through and you can get a degree in something that's going to pay $15,000 a year, and you owe $220,000 just from undergrad. So yeah, it's. I think there's a bubble that's going to come around pretty quick. So we can offer help in that area.
Okay, good information and good support.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mark, for that. Thank you, Mark, for your information and insight. Again, lawyers from the American law firm standing by now to take your call. No matter what the topic, the advice is free. 815-394-1776. Lawyers will be taking calls for another half hour after the airing of this show. We'll be back with a closing statement when Legal Matters returns.